Hey JK, how are you?
Hi, Liz.
How's your week going?
It's going cold, very
Yes.
cold this
Do you
week.
have snow in Rhode Island?
Yes, we did get snow Super Bowl Sunday, and it's just
Oh.
been really cold. But I see that it's on the up and up. Hopefully, yesterday was the last really, really cold day. But
I know Boston. I feel like Boston's just all over the place right now. It's sometimes freezing, sometimes 60 degrees. You just never
was
know.
it nice for you guys on Saturday?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, well, I'm excited to lead this webinar with you today.
Thank you.
Look and see. I think people are trickling in here, which is great. Who were you rooting for the Super Bowl?
I don't.
Hey.
So I was just going with whatever everyone else was going with, but
Yeah.
it was pretty split. I mean, I wasn't disappointed
Yeah.
with who won, but I wasn't upset either.
Yeah.
Like
I feel like
happy.
so many people are either all in or just, there for the buffalo chicken dip, which is
Which is what I had actually that night.
I'm there for the buffalo chicken dip.
Yeah. And the
Well, it looks like we have some attendees in here. So let's go ahead and get this started. For those of you who are new to the Mavinhouse webinar series, this is something that we've been doing monthly. Mavinhouse is a modern wedding planning firm creating distinctively personal events throughout New England. We have planners that I am in Boston, Jeankarla is in Rhode Island with Sarah, and we have Maine planners. So we're kind of throughout New England. And we work with clients on 3 different levels of partnerships, kind of depending where they're at in the planning process. So this particular webinar is part 2 of what to do after you get engaged. Part 1 was with Lindsay and Christina, and they touched on the first 5 things that you should tackle once you get engaged. So I'm just going to do a quick little recap on what those were, just so it's fresh in everyone's minds. The first one was assessing your priorities. So for obviously the newly engaged couple to figure out what is important to them. 2 is making a guest list. 3 is creating the budget. 4 is determining the non-negotiables, so just the things that you know you absolutely want. And then 5 is talking to a planner.
Yeah, so we'll just dive into kind of our next step, so to speak. So probably one of the biggest things after you get engaged and you've had that conversation with your significant other and your family is figuring out an actual date and a place to get married. Most important part, you got to have some place to get married. There are so many different types of venues. So this kind of refers back to one of Lindsay's points, which was your non-negotiables. This is something where people give very serious thought to, because some people would hate to do an outdoor wedding. Some people only want an indoor wedding so they have nothing to worry about in case of inclement weather.
Yep.
Some people want something super elegant, or maybe it's very rustic, or maybe you want to host your wedding at a relative's home or your childhood home or one of your summer homes, that some place that has a lot of significant meaning to you. And this is very important to figure out, of course, because then it leads into all these other things logistic wise. And of course, figuring out the rest of your budget. So that's probably one of the most important things. Of course, your date. A lot of people sometimes try to choose a date that's significant in their relationship. Maybe some people like to pick the same date that they started officially dating. Like an anniversary, or it's a parent's anniversary, a grandparent's anniversary, or any significant, meaningful date that relates back to the couple. It also gives that extra personal touch and a nice reference throughout the day as well.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I have a couple who's getting married on their parents' anniversary date, which is I think that's really cool. I think that's special. And then hopefully you remember the date.
Yeah, you never
Your
forget. My
significant other
cousin
remembers
is
it
doing
better.
the same thing. Yep, my
Helps your
cousin
parents
is
out
getting
too.
married to her middle school sweetheart in 2 weeks,
Oh,
actually. And that'll be like, I think it's like 13 years together.
yeah, that's great. And then also thinking about the seasons, and if you've always envisioned a fall wedding or a summer wedding, that definitely is something to consider and goes along with the venue too, and what like JK just mentioned, and what the weather is going to look like at that particular venue. So once like we said, that's sort of the next step on thinking about date and venue, because that's the information you need before you go any further booking vendors. So once the date and venue is finalized and you know where you're getting married, you have your date, it's kind of like, what's next? We would recommend booking key vendors. So what we mean by that is sort of the big players for the wedding day, like a caterer, and then a photographer and band, if you'd like a band. A lot of venues might already have an in-house caterer. So sometimes that, when you book your venue, you already have the caterer, but other times you would have to hire an outside caterer. So they're obviously a big piece of the puzzle. And then photographers and bands tend to get booked up the quickest.
Yes.
So we always recommend that our couples book their photographer and band sooner rather than later, especially if, when you're talking about what's important to you, if the photos are important or if the music's important, you definitely want to book those early.
Absolutely. I think those are probably the biggest key players in your planning process, and the most important when you are looking at your non-negotiables. Make sure you kind of get a jump on that first and foremost, right after you've booked your venue and picked your date.
Yeah. And a little tip we like to give for photographers too, keep in mind that's a person that you're going to be spending your whole day with. So we always recommend that you hop on a call or a Zoom with your photographer and just get to know them a little bit, because that ends up being a close relationship. And we also would recommend engagement photos with your wedding photographer, because it's sort of a warm up. You get to know them and get comfortable with them behind the camera. So just a little tidbit on things to consider when you're.
I think the engagement photos are probably the most exciting things for some couples, because I feel like it makes it more real for them that it's actually happening. It's just like a taste of what their day is going to be like when it's just the two of them and they're so happy and cute.
Yes, absolutely. And then bands book up quickly. So definitely getting a head start with them. I would say with DJs, there's a little bit more flexibility, but again, that just goes back to that conversation with your partner about your priorities, and where you stand with that. Yeah. So engagement photos actually goes kind of into our third point.
Yes. So the next big thing would probably be to start creating your wedding website and save the dates. You want to be able to announce that you're officially getting married, you've picked a date, you want to start letting people know when it's going to happen. And that's just one extra step to make it all real. And your wedding website is so important, because not only is it a little bit of reflection of yourself, but also a reflection of the day itself. And we'll have lots of important information for your guests, especially if you're doing a destination wedding and it's filled with a lot of weekend events. That's very helpful for those guests who may have not been to the location that you're getting married at. So having all that useful information is super important to them. They appreciate it. Trust me, they do.
And a great wedding website, I would say, is Zola. It's super user friendly. It's very, setting it up is pretty quick, and it's a great platform to use when you start that step. And a good thing just to be sending out, like JK said, to friends so they can start thinking about location and accommodations and those steps. Save the dates would be, so once you've sort of done these steps, you're kind of in territory of, okay, where are we going to go next? Who's going to help us with the rest of the plans? If save the dates would be the next step. And certainly if you're looking into a more streamlined process, like sending electronic save the dates or save the dates through Minted, you could handle that on your own. If you're toying with the idea of custom save the dates, you would definitely want to have a professional helping you with that. So if you don't have a planner already, now is kind of a great time to get that conversation started with a planner, to have them bring everything together. You have your venue, you have a couple key vendors, but how are you going to pull all the logistics together and the design together, and really bring the day to its fullness.
Absolutely. I think one of the most important things to kind of note here is, of course, most of your venues have an event manager or an event coordinator, and they are fabulous working with wedding planners because we kind of go hand in hand. We help each other out, but they are solely focused on whatever happens at the venue. That is their priority. They won't be able to exactly help you with all the little tiny details, such as picking the rest of your vendor team based on how well they get to know you, which is something that Mavinhouse really loves to do with their clients, is really create close personal relationships with them, because at the end of the day, this is supposed to be tailored to our couples. We want to make sure that their wedding truly is an example of them. And so that's the extra step you'll get hiring a wedding planner, is they'll pay extra attention to you both and figure out what vendor team is the best possible match for all of you, and bring those details together logistically, aesthetically, sometimes emotionally, for you. So it's always great to kind of have that person who you can lean on and is an advocate throughout the planning process and doesn't have hundreds of other weddings that they have to worry about as well. It's really personal and really important part in your planning process, because I always tell couples this: wedding planning should not be stressful. Yes, sometimes there are little moments, but this is supposed to be one of the most exciting moments of your life, and you should be happy that you're doing this and excited and getting really, I don't know, like, just, you shouldn't be stressed out, and it helps. Yeah, you're getting married. Like, it should be great.
Exactly. Yeah, that's such a good point. And so I think that's where, if you are feeling stressed or overwhelmed, to really just to alleviate that, like, bring a partner on who you trust and who can take that load, and who can just tell you what you need to do and when, and you don't have to be so heavily involved in the logistics. And also, there's a lot that comes up as far as the day of, and just having that point person the day of the wedding to be running the timeline and managing vendors and making sure family members are where they need to be, because the last thing you want is for mom or an aunt to be wearing that hat. So just to sort of bullet point what we just talked about is the summary of next steps. Securing your date and venue, key vendors, caterer, photographer, band, announcing it on a wedding website, if you are comfortable with setting your save the dates, and then the fourth step really being, talking and potentially hiring a planner. Are the next big steps. So we'd love to open up the floor if anyone has any burning questions, or if they've started the process and are trying to figure out what to do next.
I know. I feel like everyone is anyone who's engaged is kind of on that fence of whether or not they need one. And a conversation that you and I talked about this the other day, Liz, that I let a client know that it's really like a lifestyle decision if you think about it, because sometimes, yes, someone could very well plan their whole wedding, but there's also some people who may not have the bandwidth mentally, physically, to invest the time it takes to research all these vendors, reach out to them, review contracts, and kind of keep track of all the things that need to get done leading up to your wedding date, that a planner absolutely can take on that responsibility for you and make sure everything gets done and no details are missed.
Yeah.
So it really alleviates a lot of stress, in my opinion.
Yes. And something to touch on too is just the reality of what 2022 and pandemic living looks like. I think so many people are seeing, whether it's on social media or the news, just about the demand of weddings, and whether it's because of postponements or rescheduling. Obviously, a ton of people got engaged recently. There's just a very high demand right now. And so things are booking a lot faster. There's a lot of staffing problems. There's just a lot of factors to consider right now because of the pandemic. And so definitely having a partner to help navigate that is helpful. And I think, unfortunately, there's sort of a lack. Tends to be a delay in response times too. And so a lot of times planners, we have those relationships with vendors and can get the responses a little bit quicker. So definitely something to keep in mind as we're still living in this COVID.
Absolutely.
era.
I think another big thing, the great thing about the Mavinhouse team is that we have planners kind of spread throughout New England, where we can all kind of brainstorm together. If someone's booked, usually another planner has someone in mind. So that's always the great thing about us, is that we have a giant Rolodex of contacts to sift through. If our couple is having trouble securing anybody on their own, they can look towards us as a resource to help them figure out, okay, if this person's taken, who else is very similar in style, price point, has the availability, and we have everyone else on the team to kind of help through that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question that just came into the chat here is, what sort of engagement photos should I consider? And how soon after I get engaged do I need to start the process of announcing it? So that's a good question. And some of that depends on the location too, and if it's a destination wedding or not. Obviously, if it is a destination, you want to give more time. Engagement photos, I mean, that's tends to be up to you guys, up to the couple and what they're looking for. I think it's fun to sort of have something a little more casual for engagement photos and just true to you as a couple, because obviously your wedding photos will be more formal. And as far as when to start thinking about that, I would say 8 to 10 months before your wedding date, if not a year. Definitely to think on the earlier side. Let's see, what other, do you have any thoughts to add to that one, JK?
Engagement photos. I mean, I don't love getting my picture taken, so I'm sure there are couples out there who might be in the same boat. So maybe you don't want to do engagement photos, and that's totally fine too, especially if you're not the couple who likes to take pictures.
Right.
Something very simple on a beautiful piece of stationery, customized, that kind of hints as to what's to come on the actual invitation with just your names and your date, is also a great option as well. Engagement photos, I feel like sometimes there might be pressure to do that, and there is not. You do not have to do that at all. It's only if you're comfortable. Will I do it? I'm not 100% sure, but I am in full support of the couples who do that, because I do think the photos end up being beautiful and are also beautifully displayed in homes, and they make really nice. Sarah and I were actually just talking about this the other day, of a fun guest book idea of putting them in like the coffee table Like,
Oh, yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it's set up as a coffee table and then used as a guest book. So it's
Yeah.
stylish enough to put inside your home afterwards.
I love that.
So benefits of engagement photos there.
Yep. I love that. Yeah. Definitely. And so just to sort of wrap up, I'll just reiterate the next steps again so that they're fresh in everyone's mind. But step one being securing the date and venue, 2, booking key vendors, 3, announcing it, and 4, hiring a planner. So both JK and I are happy to chat more offline with you. If you have any questions about Mavinhouse or our partnerships, as we mentioned, there are 3 partnerships, and they are listed on our website, mavinhouse.com. And if you'd like to schedule a complimentary consultation, you can do that on our website as well. And then our Instagram handles, mine is Liz_Mavinhouse, and JK is Jeankarla_Mavinhouse, and then the Mavinhouse events page is Mavinhouse_events.
Very easy.
I know. So thanks so much for joining us today, guys. And we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar, hopefully.
Bye. Thank you.